Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I will be doing my first ever Army List Spotlight, with this episode featuring Dark Angels. This is going to be a series of videos where I pick a list that made top 3 in an ITC Major and then analyze it and explain why it did so well, how to pilot the army, and what to look out for if you decide to use it. This episode we have a list from back in August. I went back to this list from August because this one really stuck out at me because it looks simple to make but effective, so I figured it would be a good starting point for the series. The event was the Northwest Open. It had 52 competitors and this list placed 3rd overall. The player was Dan Green, so congrats to him and thanks for bringing us this unique list. So to actually go over the list, the overall faction is Imperium, but a good chunk of the army is Dark Angels, including the Warlord, making it technically a Dark Angels army. The first detachment we have is a Dark Angels Vanguard detachment. The HQ slot is taken up by Azreal. The elite slots are taken up by 6 Dreadnoughts, all with twin autocannons, 1 fast attack, which is the Ravenwing Death Shroud, 1 heavy support, which is a Predator with 4 las cannons, and 3 dedicated transports, which are Razorbacks with twin assault cannons and Stormbolters. The next detachment is an Imperium keyword detachment, and it's a Spearhead detachment. The HQ choice is the Dark Angels Primaris Lieutenant with a Mastercrafted rifle, 1 Troops choice of Tempestus Scions, all with hot-shot lasguns, then 5 heavy support slots taken up by 5 heavy mortar teams from Imperial Guard. And that is the complete 2,000 point list. Now let's get into the analysis of the list and units. So first off, let me get this out of the way. This list could be built more optimally now that the Guard Codex is out. You can now use heavy weapons teams as Cadians in a Cadian regiment, and they will get to reroll ones to hit and have access to the Guard stratagems. So the changes I would personally make, I would have someone to give orders to the heavy weapons team as the HQ for their regiment, and I would put the lieutenant in the Spearhead detachment with the other Dark Angels. Again, I know this will mess up points, but if you are making this list or a list like it, you can find a way to tailor the list to fit your models and playstyle. I'm just giving advice on how to most optimally play a list like this in the future. And the most optimal way to play armies, it seems, is to play them in their own separate detachments so they keep their army special rules and get access to their stratagems. More options is always better in competitive play. So with that said, let's go over the units and explain their purpose. Azreal is a great HQ for the Dark Angels. He allows Dark Angels within 6 inches of him to reroll all failed hit rolls like most Chapter Masters do. But the real deal here is he also gives every Dark Angel within 6 inches of him a 4-up invulnerable save, meaning if you deploy properly, you can arguably have the most resilient gunline army in the game combined with the Dark Shroud as well. So as you can see from the list, this is abused on a high toughness vehicles. Anti-tank weapons normally have anywhere from -2 to -4 AP, meaning when one of your vehicles takes damage, they would normally only have a 5 or 6 up save after the armor penetration. But with Azreal, you counter half of the benefit of anti-tank weapons, which is high AP. So sure, they will wound you as much as normal, but you will save many more wounds than normal, meaning your tanks will last longer than theirs. Azreal is a must-have in any Dark Angels army right now, at least to make it competitive. I can see lists including other units, but Azreal is a must. The next unit to talk about is the Dark Angels Lieutenant. I know in this list he's in the other detachment, but we're going to talk about him as if he's in this detachment, because in future lists you should keep your Dark Angels in Dark Angels detachments, and keep your Guard in Guard detachments, so everyone gets their army-specific rules and stratagems. So the Lieutenant is pretty simple. He stands beside Azreal and helps buff the rest of the army. That's his only purpose in life. The next units to talk about are the Dreadnoughts with autocannons. I like these guys, but personally would include some of the Forge World Dreadnoughts that have 4 las cannons, or even 1 twin las cannon, 1 missile launcher is a good loadout for a regular Dreadnought. This player opted for the twin assault cannons though, and they are still great weapons. They are good mid-damage weapons. They aren't really anti-tank or anti-infantry. They are a middle ground where they are kind of okay at both. They are great at killing things that only have a few wounds per model like Terminators and bikes, but they don't really fit as a full-on anti-infantry or anti-tank. They're somewhere in the middle. Overall, they are probably the best choice for a Dreadnought if you do not know what the meta is going to be like. This way, it's the best all-corners weapon for a Dreadnought. So the strategy is these guys form a gun line in front of Azreal, all within 6 inches of Azreal and the Lieutenant to be re-rolling all failed hits, wound rolls of 1s, and to get a 4-up invulnerable save. This is the key to the army. Everything sits in one big blob and all benefits each other. If you don't like sitting still and shooting, you're gonna hate this army. If you love sitting still and shooting, you're gonna love this army. The Razorbacks are pretty self-explanatory. Good anti-infantry, and they synergize well with the Azreal Lieutenant combo, like every other Dark Angel vehicle. They also move pretty fast, so they can be used to grab objectives if needed. They are essentially your objective grabbers and anti-infantry. The next unit, which is also one of the most important units in the Wombo combo, and I probably should have talked about earlier, is the Dark Shroud. The Dark Shroud is a vehicle that gives a buff to friendly Dark Angels within 6 inches, like Azreal and the Lieutenant. But its buff is to make all the Dark Angels -1 to shoot at, meaning it's harder to hit them in the shooting phase. This means your opponent has to waste shots on the Dark Shroud to maximize their damage potential in the future, because they don't want to suffer the -1 longer than they have to. And this can be abused by hiding the Dark Shroud behind a wall and deploying everything else in front of the wall but within 6 inches. This combined with the buffs from Azreal and the Lieutenants make this army frustratingly stupid for your opponent to play against. And even if you can't hide the Dark Shroud to cheese them, they still have to waste valuable anti-tank on that vehicle before they start shooting at all of your good vehicles. So technically, it's a distraction Carnifex that gives a good buff and helps synergize with the idea of an immobile but super resilient gunline. The last units to talk about are the heavy weapons teams with mortars. They are just some good anti-infantry. They are essentially bolt guns that can fire 48 inches without needing line of sight, which is pretty good. They can also work as screening units for the rest of your army, but aren't really meant for that. So with that said, let's get into one of the glaring weaknesses I can see with this army. This army can get horribly screwed by a fast assault army or deep strike. This army doesn't have much of a screen for its vehicles, meaning if you deep strike in with some units and get lucky on charges, you can tie up pretty much their whole gun line. I can just see a unit of 20 Gene Stealers tying up half of this army in combat on turn 1 because of a Swarm Lord ability that allows them to move in advance again after they've already moved in advance, and Gene Stealers can charge after they advance, making this a brutal combo. So overall, this is one of the big weaknesses I can find with this army. But when taken into the right meta and given the right matchups, I'm pretty sure this army will out-gunline most of the gunline armies in the game, and with some tweaks could be even stronger. One of the upsides to playing a heavily mechanized list is most of your opponent's anti-infantry is essentially useless for the whole game. It's almost a counter meta army because most people are bringing a lot of anti-infantry to deal with guard and demons right now. So it's resilient in that way, and also resilient in half of your opponent's weapons are going to be useless against them. And that's going to be it for all the analysis for the units. So now, just to quickly summarize the strategy for this army, surround your whole Dark Angel forces around Azreal, the Lieutenant, and the Dark Shroud to create a bubble of goodness where your Dark Angels are -1 to be shot at, they have a 4-up invulnerable save, they reroll all failed hit rolls, and reroll wound rolls of 1. This is a super Wombo combo Death Star. And the mortars are just there to provide some deep strike denial, anti-infantry, and a screen if needed, although there are much better screens like conscripts with commissars, which I would actually think about putting into this list instead of the mortars, depending on what models you own and also what your current local meta is. Anyways, that's going to be it for this army list spotlight. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, please feel free to list them down below in the comments. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe for more Warhammer 40k content. So anyways, thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video, and happy wargaming.